Welcome to another edition of Be the Change Georgia, where we amplify the voices of the inspiring business leaders surrounding the B Corp and social impact movements across the Southeast to help you learn how to build your legacy at the intersection of people, planet, purpose, and profit. Today, there are more than 8,000 B Corps in over 80 countries and 180 different industries, unified by one common goal: transforming the global economy to benefit all people, communities, and the planet. If you want to learn how to plug into our purpose-driven business community alongside the inspiring leaders we feature on this show, check us out at belocalgeorgia.com or on Instagram or Facebook at belocalgeorgia, and we'll hope to meet you at our next event. Today, we're joined by Marie Davis, Executive Director of the Georgia Center for Employee Ownership. We'll be exploring how businesses can transition to employee ownership, a move that preserves the founder's legacy and empowers their employees in the process. Marie shares with us her personal connection to this work, reflecting on how her family's business could have possibly lived on if her parents had known about employee ownership models. Marie will also break down the different forms of employee ownership, from ESOPs to employee ownership trusts to co-ops, and discuss how these models provide real financial and cultural benefits for business and their teams, or as she puts it, a win-win-win. If you're a business owner, an entrepreneur, or just someone interested in how companies can build lasting wealth for employees, this is an episode you won't want to miss. Enjoy. Marie Davis, it is a pleasure to finally have you on Be the Change Georgia. I'm excited to talk employee ownership, talk all the things with you that I've gone down the rabbit hole with. So I guess I'll start with welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Nathan. It's great to be here. Longtime admirer of yours.
Well, the feeling's mutual ever since the first time you invited me to one of your events, and I went, "What is this?" and honestly, just a topic I had no real understanding of, and I think I'm still basically scratching the surface. I wouldn't even say I know enough to be dangerous. I know enough to know that I love the idea of democratizing capital. I love the idea of creative ways to retain great employees. I love the idea of actually investing in our employees and rewarding them for, decades of hard work and sharing in some of that profit. So I'm excited to unpack all the things. I might not have even gotten that right. But we have the expert today from the state of Georgia around employee ownership. So if you're okay with it, let's get right into it.
Let's do it.
Well, as I just demonstrated, many business owners may not be familiar with the Georgia Center for Employee Ownership or the concept in general. We'll get more into the concept later in the episode, but what is GACEO and what exactly are y'all here to do? Like, what is your mission in the state and I guess greater to just the parent organization as well?
Okay, so our parent organization is EOX, Employee Ownership Expansion Network, and they've been around about 7 years. And they were really created to be the nonprofit vessel of employee ownership. They're funded a lot by founders of companies who have put their company into an ESOP, and also some of the service providers who do that kind of work. It's a pretty tight team across the United States. And they were tasked with creating state centers. So they have created, in 7 years, 14 state centers, and Georgia's been around a little over 5 years. And so the Georgia Center for Employee Ownership, and if you want to look up another state center, you can go to our website or go to EOX. Most of them are the same little acronym. Texas is TXCEO, Alabama is ALC. You get the idea. So it stands for Center for Employee Ownership. And so what we do is we provide nonprofit information at no cost to business owners and to individuals, to those people who should know, the providers for small businesses such as lawyers, CPAs, financial planners. We talk to them about this totally forgotten thing called employee ownership, which was created by Congress back in the 70s, believe it or not.
Wow. And you kind of like it was interesting as we were kind of talking about what we want to talk about and what you want to cover and what we want to cover and the whatever the Venn diagram overlap. But I have to ask because your story around employee ownership, it was I had no idea that it was like that personal and it was like familial and like so if I mean as much as you want to share a little bit about like your passion in this space and then we'll kind of unpack the whole like what are they and everything. But I think that story like it is so incredible to hear you tell it. And I was sitting here like jaw on the floor the first time I heard it. So if you kind of want to talk about your own tie in to this community and your passion behind your work, I'd love to
Oh,
share that with the
absolutely.
listener.
So I was in the financial world back in the 80s, so I knew what an ESOP was. I don't know why I didn't think to explain this to my parents. But anyway, my parents came from Alabama in 1955 to Atlanta. My father went to work as a groundskeeper for Georgia Tech. He had a master's in horticulture and a master's in landscape architecture. Went from World War II to the GI Bill, and his whole idea was to start a company. And so he did on the weekends and finally built it up enough to where you got to remember this is before Home Depot, Pikes, Lowe's, all that. And so it was quite a thing out on Buford Highway. If any of you know where that is, it's now a Vietnamese mall. But anyway, so for nearly 50 years, they had a huge nursery and a huge store that would rival a small Walmart neighborhood store. That's how big it was. And they sold everything from soup to nuts. Anyway, they had two huge landscape teams that mostly did corporate work, not necessarily individual homes. And at one time, they had 41 employees. Well, they were so busy running their company that they just didn't keep up with things. In fact, when my father got sick at 78, he still had not written a will. This very intelligent man, and my mother, who also had a master's degree, still had not done a will. And you would think business people would do that, but they work 7 days a week. So, anyway, when my dad passed away, we ended up auctioning the business. Why? Because he was the business. And those employees, we just lost the legacy of a great business, the Atlanta Garden Center. Somebody listening to this probably might remember it. I doubt it. But anyway, it's been gone about 20 years now. The point is that had my parents known about an employee stock ownership plan, they could have provided for those 41 people. As it was, when we were cleaning out my dad's closet, I was cleaning out my dad's closet. I found envelopes with his key employees' names on it, and in it was money for their retirement plan. Good old fashioned, hide it under the mattress, except in this case, it was the cabinet of envelopes of money that, of course, had not increased in any sort of value. And although these very few employees that were still with him when we closed the store, they had no idea he was building up money for them. No idea. They were still earning minimum wage or whatever it was at the time. And so they didn't have any knowledge that he cared about them that much. So when my father passed away, the legacy of the business left. All the people who were still with him lost their jobs. And it just, it's the end of an era. He had three little girls, and none of us wanted to. We grew up working in the store, but we just didn't want to do that. So the business died. So it is very personal for me. And so when I once again was reminded of this wonderful thing called an ESOP, an employee stock ownership plan, in fact, that's really why they hired me, was to tell this story. I told that story, and my boss and our board member looked at each other and said, "We need you to tell that story and how this could have been prevented," which it easily could have been. So that's how I got really back into this world. And now the more I talk to these companies, the more excited I get and can tell a lot more stories about preservation of legacy, preservation of employees and capital, and just a planning for the future for wonderful stories.
Well, I think it's really cool too because in the B Corp space, we're doing so much around impactful work, and creating businesses that people want to work for and people want to do business with, and we have all these, we take care of our stakeholders and we take care of our team, and we, I mean, even the new standards are going to a living wage requirement, and environmental stewardship and all these things. And it's like, I think what has appealed to me has been that ability. And I remember the first time I heard this term, I was out in Nebraska at a conference last year, and one of the guys who puts the conference on has gone employee ownership. He's kind of stepped out of the CEO role, and now he's trying to help other companies take this step. And he started talking about evergreen companies and these companies that last for hundreds of years. And like, what a cool, otherwise we're in a weird way, we're kind of reinventing the wheel with every generation of business owner. And then you exit, and then what happens to your baby? And really, we're not thinking about what is the long-term legacy and the long-term impact that we are building as business owners. Or are we just doing this for 10 years and it's going to be a great place to work, and then somebody's going to buy it from us and out we go? And, we might align that buyer with our vision. But at the end of the day, like, what happens to the team? What happens versus this whole new route? And so ever since I found it, I've just been incredibly enamored. And then, meeting Jay and him talking about evergreen companies, and it's just kind of taken on a life of its own. So let's talk about what they are, because I think most people, and we've heard ESOP already, we've heard EOX, there's trusts, so let's get into like the employee ownership 101 with Marie Davis.
Okay, so this is we could talk for like 5 hours. We've done it before, but let's talk about what we're talking about here and what size company would be interested. So with an ESOP, the stock is owned by a trust. It's really a great vehicle. Now, the catch with an ESOP is it has to be at least 25 to 30 employees. Now, some companies it might be 50, some could possibly do it by 20. You've got a great employee-owned company there in Athens called Joma Construction. They are 100% employee-owned. They did it with very few employees. So the employees' retirement money is sitting in a trust, and they can't put any money in there. It's only the company that puts the money in there, and it's regulated by the Labor Department. So the more successful a company is, the more successful they are in putting money away from their company. Now let's talk about Joma for a second. Every penny that is profit for them, they do not pay federal income tax on, because they are employee owned. And that's the beauty of what a lot of people don't realize is it's a win-win-win for the company, for the employees, and the employees are the stockholders. Now, a lot of companies do not do that 100%. There's many family-owned businesses who go 49% employee-owned, and then the family business retains a bigger, you can start out with 10%. It's pretty malleable. It's just that once you become employee-owned, you are regulated by the Labor Department. A lot of benefits. So another form is the employee ownership trust. Now, this has always been the UK model. It's gained popularity in the United States in the last few years. Let me give you an example of how many. There are about 7,000 employee stock ownership plans in the United States. There should be 5 times that many, but there are about 7,000. Employee ownership trust, they're only about 55 or 60, but it's picked up rapidly. There are basically no tax benefits, but the employee ownership trust can be done with very few employees. The numbers say 10. I think you could probably do it with less, but they basically just put shares into a trust for the employee. It's free to the employee, and it is not regulated by the Labor Department. So lots of benefits for the employees, not so many for the owner that is selling. They can defer their tax payments, so that's an important thing. But for the company, not a lot of tax benefits. So with an employee-owned company, employee stock ownership plan, nothing really changes. The employees do not run the company. The board stays the same. They simply add a trustee, and they're regulated. That trustee is responsible for making sure they don't get in trouble with the Labor Department. An employee-owned trust, nothing changes either. But the founders can direct a lot of things in that trust, just like your family trust. In this state, in this country, it's called a perpetual purpose trust, really is what it is. But let's just say you take your family and you put it in that trust. It's the same concept. You can provide for your family in that trust, and that's what a company would be doing. So the other form is called cooperative, and there are many, many cooperatives in the country. There's a lot of reasons for this. A very, very small amount of people, probably even two or three, can do it. So for a very small business, it's never going to even grow big enough to bother with a trust. They can become a co-op. And the very largest one in this country is REI. Most of us know that. We bought shoes or gummy bears or something there. And so you have to buy into the cooperative, same concept. Everybody, and not everybody has to buy in, not all the employees. Like with an employee stock ownership plan, everybody's got to be provided for. With a co-op, you can have 50 employees and only 5 buy in. And so what that means is whoever buys in has an equal vote. Whereas the governing board still takes care of the employee ownership trust. In an ESOP, it's still the board and the trustee. But in a co-op, let's say, and there's a lot in Athens. So if you are a business founder and you start a co-op, you then lose your voice as a founder. You still have your vote, but the next person that comes in has the same vote as you. Some people that'd be great for, some people it wouldn't, but they can vote, how they want to. Now and I know we got short on time, but let me tell you really quickly that the beauty of the employee ownership trust and the co-op, even though there's very, very few tax benefits, basically none, it's very inexpensive to set up and maintain. So a smaller company can do either one of those, very minimal cost and not ongoing. And you have a great friend that has an employee ownership trust, Maren Oka.
Yep.
You know Maren very well. She's a big proponent of employee ownership trust. And an ESOP is very expensive. It's expensive up front, but then you get those massive tax benefits. So let's just talk about JOMA. We're pecking on them this morning.
One of these days, I'm going to get them to certify too, Mackenzie, if you're listening.
Yes.
Let's.
Do.
I have the full circle. I have an engineering firm. I have an architect firm. I just need my GC now.
There you go.
Building the B Corp circular economy in Athens.
And they are such a great example of that was a family business. If you ever heard of one, the name is from John Newland and his wife, Joma. And I've interviewed them and heard them talk about, we're a family. And they thought, we want to take care of our employees. One of the questions we had talked about was why we're pushing people to do this now. Let's talk about Joma. Everybody's young. So here's this founder, this great, great company. Joma, Mr. Newland's pretty young, very young compared to most people. He did this before he has any plans of leaving the company. So he's still running his company. He's still putting money, tax-free money, into the ESOP. He's still running the company. He's still enjoying all these years of still being there and watching these people grow and stay and not leave, because why would you leave? Where would you go that would be a better deal? So that is just a wonderful, wonderful example. Another thing we do is not just go around and talk about these forms of employee ownership, but to open some eyes of people. And you're right. This is why you and I have so much work to do together. B Corps and employee-owned companies have, or should better have, the same culture of taking care of each other, of growing your culture and not just your business, that both will follow.
No, I mean, I love it too. I mean, and there are a lot of examples in the B Corp, and it's kind of cool. When I was on a call the other day, and one of who I've always known him as the owner and the founder, and he introduced himself as the president, but one of the working owners, or
Yeah.
what, I forget, no, one of the member owners or something. And I was like, huh. So I was like, and I didn't know they had gone employee owned. I knew Maren because I was in Miami last year. So for those who don't know, that's Oak Aquatics, which is one of the bigger B Corps down in Florida, honestly, in the Southeast. They run swim schools across South Florida. I was down there last year and actually got to where I'm literally in my old neighborhood, went and toured, and everybody was so excited because they had just finished everything. And Maren was excited, and Mary, her CFO, was excited. I mean, they were just so over the moon, and she was so excited to introduce me to people who were now owners.
So, see, that's why that culture goes together. And the beautiful thing about Mirren's company, well, now it's, but because those people were never going to be 40-hour a week employees.
Hmm.
She probably has some, but when you're teaching swimming after school or maybe in the summer you're full time, those people have less chance of putting money aside for retirement because they can't, they can't
Hmm.
swim all day long. Let's face it. So she took a problem with a company and fixed it by creating this employee ownership trust. It's just beautiful and a very little cost, and everybody's happy. It's great. And that's another thing about the ownership trust and the co-ops. They are really malleable, so you can set it up very closely to what you want. You can still do it with an ESOP, and I love ESOPs. Trust me, I think they're great, but they're just not right for some companies. And so we're pleased to see these other forms. And by the way, I got to plug the Georgia Cooperative Development Center. They are really the gurus for us in Georgia, obviously Georgia, on co-ops, and they are going to help me in Athens with some work. So I'm really pleased to have their expertise, because our expertise is more on the ESOP side.
Yeah, no, and it is really cool too. Like the co-op. Well, that and I mean, what you're doing, just bringing the right stakeholders to the table as well. Of we don't have all the knowledge. I don't have all the knowledge. I'm bringing you to the table because I'm not going to accurately describe, and Lord knows I've heard enough people like went to their lawyer and said, we're going to do B Corp, and the lawyer's like, oh, then you're a nonprofit, and you're like, what are you talking about? So like when I can defer to other experts like you saying the same thing, it's like, well, let me bring in the people who can actually
Mhm.
explain what this is, how to do it, and make sure that I'm not stepping in it. um yeah, it's amazing. I'm excited for you guys to come up to Athens. We've got a cool table of stakeholders in the Athens business community, nonprofit community coming in. um Theoretically on these, I think they're really cool. There is and I don't know if democratization of capital is the right term, but I mean, we have this like increasing wealth gap, and the capital gap, and capital makes more money than just the growth of the economy. That return is greater than. So you have this like really innovative way to kind of bring back, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I kind of like, in my layman's terms, I think of the old days of work 30 years in a blue collar job, be how do you, whatever, whether it was union or not union. In my family, a lot of half the family's from Michigan, so it was union. But you had these pensions. It wasn't just the gold watch after 30 years of service. It was, you retired, and in a weird way, it created at least a little bit of generational wealth to pass down. And it's this really like this modern day version of that, but also added in the business advantage. To me is just so slam dunk, because you're creating an incentive not only for your team to care about the collective, that whatever the slippage or whatever inventory slippage or whatever it is, the quality of the house you build, whatever, that we are all sharing in the profitability of this company. So everybody has that owner, that the old adage of like, don't expect your team to care as much about the company as you do. They don't own it. Now they do.
Mhm.
So you have that, and then I think you also are retaining some of the best in, and some of these industries. There's not a lot of. You only have so many supervisors. You only have so many foremen. You only have so many directors. When there's not a lot of places to go, you start looking for, how do I increase? But now you have something where you're like, I'm pretty happy. I'm paid well, and I have this thing sitting here waiting for me.
Mhm.
And I think it incentivizes good people to stay and be happy and feel like they have a say in the direction of the company. So, what did I say that was wrong, or did I nail it?
You didn't say anything wrong. I'm going back to Joma for just a second, because one of the things that we have to do when a company becomes employee owned is instill employee that they are an owner, and everything they do directly affects the company's profits. Let's talk about Joma. Ask to tour this when you go. They have a closet where, and I've had other contractors tell me that no one ever returned anything. And once it became employee owned, Home Depot just couldn't keep up with their returns because they'd throw it in the trash. So Joma actually has a return closet. So when they do a job, they go check in what they didn't use, and somebody comes in there and they get credit for checking it in too. Go and check it out. What is that? They are thinking like owners. They're like, we really make a difference. So let's talk about the mental health side of this.
Mm.
You you stole my thunder on the retirement watch, because I went to an ESOP association meeting, and bought a T-shirt that I just love, and it says employee ownership, because cash at retirement is better than a gold watch. Isn't that marvelous? And so, if you think that doesn't fire us up to try to encourage founders and business owners to look for whatever model works for their company, and we want to help them. We really, the main start is succession planning. Look at my parents, very smart people. They just were too busy with the business of business. So you got to have succession planning. We have a great tool for that by our Ohio State Center at Kent State. It's absolutely free. That's where we want you to start. And so it doesn't matter whether you're just starting your business on this end. Let's think about the end game. You said something earlier about how things have changed. I did a presentation to a CEO group not too long ago, and I floored them by saying that, did you know that people that you are interviewing are 60% more likely to want a job with you if you have a strong culture? 60% more likely, not the extra dollar in their pocket.
Mm-hmm.
The younger generation, and hopefully everybody starts looking at business this way. This is my life. I want to make a difference. I want to feel different. And you walk into an employee owned company and you just know it. Walk into the largest one in this country. I say this everywhere I go, that people are sick of hearing it probably, but walk into Publix. They are 100% employee owned, started out as a family business. They have been for, I don't know, 30 years. I really don't know. But walk in there and look. Watch how people are putting stuff on the shelf, and then walk in another grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
It won't take you long before you see the ownership factor. And this is a way for people to, they're not voting on the important things of the company. That's not the way it works. There's still that board of directors. There's hopefully still that founder there, but they have a say in the outcome of their own retirement money that's put away at no cost to them. They could still have an IRA. A lot of companies still have profit sharing that are employee owned. But remember, profit sharing came after employee ownership, and there's a cap, of course, on how much you can put in there. How much, by the way, if anybody's got a profit sharing plan, please do the maximum, even if you have to eat crackers. It's free money. The company has to match you, but if you got to choose between a company with a great profit sharing plan and an employee owned company, please. And by the way, if you go to our website or any of these other states, you live somewhere else, you're thinking of moving, you can hit where it says Georgia, Texas, whatever. And there's a drop down and it talks about all the employee owned companies. It's not up to date. By the way, there's another great 100% employee owned company in Athens that has a gorgeous warehouse down there on 78, Georgia Spa.
Mm.
Birthed right outside of Athens, but they've got they're 100% employee owned. It's on their website. It's probably on their door somewhere. But another great employee owned company.
Well, the crazy part that you're hitting these too is like the plethora of industries. Like the one and I'm drawing a blank. I want to say Mindspring, but I'm not 100% sure. But it was Jay Wilkinson. Anyway, I know that. But like consulting company.
Mm-hmm.
There's we've talked about Joma as a general contractor. We talked about Publix, it's a grocery store. So we've talked about Oak Aquatics, it's a swim school. So you have these different like varying, and whatever you want to call white collar, blue collar, like all of the high tech, highly whatever, like advanced degrees and technical trades that are honestly making a comeback because of the cost of higher education now. And so you're seeing this like variety of industries taking this step. And I think it's really, really cool because, I don't think it gets talked about enough in some of these circles of like, again, the ultimate way to really empower your employees and to provide a great experience and like to bring some humanity back to the workplace. It's just so unique and so cool. And I'm so glad you invited me into this world. And, between some of our shared Matthew Epperson, who lives in Athens.
Yes, bless Matthew Epperson. He introduced me to you.
So that those connections of like making this world smaller. And I would say too, to anybody who's thinking about this, because as you were talking about that succession tool, I was thinking about the B impact assessment too, where I'm like, look, it's a free thing. Come do it.
Yeah.
Like, it's not going to hurt your business to go through and kind of, and if you're a business owner thinking about an exit, or you love what you do, and I know these people too, and they're riding it till the wheels fall off until somebody takes the keys out of their hands. Think about what does come next, and go through that process and kind of take that long, hard look in the mirror, much like the B impact assessment. Like, look, you don't know what you don't know, and it's not going to hurt. And let's be honest. I mean, we're nonprofits, so I don't think you're going to get aggressively panhandled and sales pitched. I think it's kind of, here are the tools, and it does, at the end of the day, I think in both of our industries, have to kind of be that owner's decision. It has to feel right. But more and more of them, I think, are seeing and having that catalog of, oh, you want to talk to another swim school? You want to talk to J.E. Dunn? You want to talk to JOMA? You want to talk to a small GC, big GC? Like, who do you want to talk to? Because we have an owner that will sing the praises and talk about, not only the financial benefits, but the soft dollar benefits of worker retention and worker ownership and those types of things.
I was in a family business that is now 100% employee owned in Woodstock, Georgia. They're actually in Ackworth, but it's Woodstock Furniture Company. And all the family's still there working away every day, but I've got a great picture of the founder, and he's just sitting there watching the amazing sale team go to town. And oh my goodness, they love being employee owned. On Saturdays, they give out ice cream to all the people that come in their store. So if you're anywhere in Ackworth, right off 75, drop by there and meet them. I guarantee you the family will be there. And they have 170 something employees, and they hand out ice cream. And when they hand out the ice cream, they get on the loudspeaker and they say, "We are 100% employee owned. So anybody you talk to today owns this company." It's the coolest thing. It gives me chill bumps.
Well, and I think, it comes back to the same thing with B Corp, and I love that you're shouting out some of these companies, because, how do we drive change, and how do we get these models to stick? And I think it's that we support these businesses, that we shop with our values, and there is a call to action there, where it's like the easy thing to do is to whatever, order it online or do the thing, but in reality, I think there's some really cool companies creating some really cool jobs, B Corp space, employee ownership space. We're not picky. We're just happy that people are doing more than the other companies, and we need
They
to
just
support
need
them.
to know about the opportunities. And that's your job, and my job is to let these wonderful people know that they can do these things. I know I'm talking your ear off, but I want to talk about another great employee-owned company that you were addressing, a living wage, just a few minutes ago. Essential Ingredients, and this is another thing that is happening in the employee ownership world, is employee-owned companies are, all this money they're making, they're not paying federal income tax. They're buying other businesses and leaving them as they are. So this company called Essential Ingredients in Lawrenceville is now a holding company called Cathedral Holdings. And one of the founders, Chris Maynard, was kind enough to speak with me at a Conscious Capitalism event. And he told this story. They asked him what was one of the major changes he had made. And he said that during COVID, they were delivering toilet paper and like gift baskets to their employees, because, that was the prime. Everybody was looking for
Six-pack of
toilet
beer and a roll of toilet paper went a long way in 2020.
So he said when he and the now president, Justin Jordan, pulled up to some of the houses, he thought, our people are living here. I mean, he was very distressed that he thought these people were very well paid. And so they went back to their board and their trustee, and they said, we want to pay our people a living wage. We want everybody in this company to know when they come here, they've got a living wage. And they raised the bar. Is that not the coolest thing? Did that give you chill bumps?
It is. I mean, and that's the thing too. I've been on this kick, and we're in this era of like, whatever, to reference one of my favorite books, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community. And it's like that journey has to be embraced as well too. That owner journey of whatever it took to open the eyes and see like, wow. And I've had that happen before, where I worked with an owner on B Corp, and it was like, we're paying really, really, it was, $15 an hour. I'm like, that was a really good wage in like 2006. Like that is not, but they were shocked. They hadn't looked at it. They didn't know. Here they are thinking we're doing this great work. And it took me kind of coming in and being like, that sucks. And then by the time I came back, everybody had gotten a raise. It was like, just sometimes it's like we don't think, and we're just running like your parents, you're just running the business. And that entrepreneur life sometimes is 7 days a week, and it's a constant hustle, and it's fires and fire drills. And
Here's that other side. You just made a great point. They don't realize that the better that person is, well, they do. They just don't know how to do it. But the better that person is valued, the more productive that company's going to be. I know that Cathedral Holdings, she's a procurement person, and she was very new to the company. You could not shut her up. She was great. We had these little breakout sessions. All she was doing was talking about, you should see how happy we are. And I don't mean we wanted to shut her up. It was great. She was talking about, and she's very young, and she was talking about, wow, why would you want to work anywhere else?
mm-hmm.
They love it. So they're going to be worth money to that company that other companies may look at and go, we can't afford to do that. You can't if you don't make the company worth working for.
Ooh. Yeah. That's your mic dropper.
And they have certainly done it. It's a beautiful thing. So there are so many more examples. You and I could talk all day. I try to address the things that you are mentioning, because the more I meet with these wonderful companies, founding owners, and just employee owners in general, you just have all these stories and people that you can send. If anybody's listening right now that is even contemplating it, that's what we do, is have you talk to other employee owners. I'm sure you do that. You don't just expect them to become a B Corp without exploration. And
Yeah, it helps to see the trailblazers that have done it and seen the benefits.
exactly.
And well, I guess, first of all, I'm going to encourage everybody to check this out, because you don't know what you don't know. The first time Marie reached out to me, and I'd had one conversation around this, I'm still very foggy. Now I've kind of read some books. I'm getting a little dangerous in how my ability to at least explain it well enough to be dangerous, but not enough to be an expert. But check out some of these events. Be a student, be curious around some of these other the things that float around in the same ecosystem as B Corps. And basically, at the end of the day, we're a good business movement. And we care about people, and we care about planet, and we care about place, community. And this is a very, very, very worthwhile idea and concept to explore and advocate for, both at your own company and in your communities. So I encourage you to check out both EOX Network for your local chapter affiliate, your local Marie, and then get involved and go check some of these out. Because I know since I've been going and I've met some of both the founders and the owners, it has been a kind of an eye-opening experience to hear that, because you can hear Marie wax poetically just like you can hear me wax poetically about B Corps, but until you meet the people affected by those decisions and hear them wax poetically, I don't know that you'll fully appreciate how incredible some of these advancements in capitalism are.
Totally agree.
Well, Marie, thank you. We'll share show notes out in the links, but don't be a stranger. Even if you just want to jump on a call with Marie, reach out to her, and kind of, if you're a founder or you have decision-making authority at a company, or you're just somebody that's a community leader and wants to be able to talk to your member businesses about this concept, get in touch with Marie, plug her in. That's what she's here for. And she's an incredible resource and an incredibly friendly person.
Nathan, thank you so much. This was so much fun.
I know. And we could go for hours. We'll do that when you're in Athens in a couple of weeks. See you soon, and keep up the great work.
Can't wait.
Well, that wraps up another edition of Be the Change Georgia. We're grateful, as always, for the opportunity to serve you with this content and grow this incredible community of purpose-driven B Corp leaders. If you haven't already, we would be grateful for you to rate this show wherever you get your podcasts by simply tapping the number of stars you think it deserves and sharing it with a friend. This helps us get the word out and continue to use our collective influence as a force for good. This podcast wouldn't be possible without the help from our production team at Chat with Leaders Media. Learn how you can launch your own podcast to grow your business at chatwithleaders.com. Thanks again for listening, and now go be a leader worth following.